They got a cat grade, and he says, I don't like it. He says, the cat ain't big enough when I eat lunch.
Yeah.
That's all he's concerned about.
Champion grade, you guys got a feature
I'll
too.
tell you,
They're nice, aren't they? They're really nice.
when you spend 10 hours a day in one every day,
You get like a nice cat, yeah. And a good seat, a good adjustable seat.
You know what?
That's,
You spend 10 hours in a champion, at the end of the day, you're completely wore out, mentally and physically. At the end of the day, you get on a cat and go out, you spend 10 days, it's like, you got a day off. I mean, there's just that
It's a
much
lot
more
easier.
frustration in trying to fight.
I think the new champion will probably be all right.
New champion's
I
a lot
just-
different than
yeah.
that.
I don't know, I like new cats, man.
they wear you out.
Just it's
Hey,
the
the
clutch
nice
is
one
so
is,
hard though. That's the
But
only thing I don't like.
All the controls are hard, the clutch is hard, they rattle, they beat
Yeah,
the
because
hell out
that's
of you.
because they've been ran to death. Everybody and their mamas.
We got almost
They-
10,000 hours
those
on
never
them,
get
they're
rid-
loud.
Twice the hour
Never
now,
get a
it's all the
break.
champions.
Gotta wear earplugs, you know. Home with a headache.
You got to put stereo in there and that'll bother you.
Tunes, man, crank it up.
No, I think if you got a couple of the new ones like they were showing there, you would really like
oh,
that.
that's
Oh,
nice.
probably,
The
yeah.
H model is really nice. Fairbanks, they got, the city of Fairbanks, they got H model. And, let's see, they got they got three H models, then they got some old champions. And then the state up there's got H models, and they got the 160s. And that's really nice. It's got more power in the 140s, and it's got a lot more features. And it's got a heavier circle on it, and it's fast. I mean, it's a rocket. These champions are fast too, but it's fast.
They're not as fast. I mean, just as far as comfort, plowing snow and all that, I think, in my own opinion, Champion's more
Champion
comfortable.
worked out for
And they plow snow fine, but I mean, there is no comparison when you're working there.
Well, no, you tear him up, because I know a fellow worked for Caterpillar, and he took him, and Caterpillar bought a new champion, they bought John Deere, and they bought a Komatsu, they took it to the training center, and they used it. They said they tore them up, they just won't take it structurally. They get Champion gets their weight by putting ballast in the frame, things like that they do. Then Champion has their type of tandem drive, they have a gear reduction in there some way. And he says when you get in you get in a ditch and you get in a hard pull, as it starts to dig, the front tandems will pull and the back tandems will start to lift a little bit off. It will give you the traction. And he said we tested them like they took a crawler and hooked between the machines, tested all the machines, and they put a device to test what they pull in the different gears. And they said that what we found out is, he said, for a Champion, for the rated horsepower they have, to how much horsepower gets down to the wheels, is a lot less than the rated horsepower in a Caterpillar that gets down to the wheels. The Champion that doesn't, what horsepower they're rated at, don't get down to the drive.
That's why we're spinning with drawing the foot.
Yeah, and the cat, I mean, you can really lug those down. I mean,
Yeah,
you can
I've
lug
always
them
felt-
almost to a dead stop.
You could
know,
do just about
and
the
you-
same amount of work as the
40s.
760s, and the cat's smaller. The 140s we have are smaller, but
Yeah.
it seems like you can peel up the ice bed just as well, if not better.
But the
And I always
160
thought it
is,
was
You
kind of like
can.
it seems like the blade is underneath you farther than those champions are. They got like, that's why I was kind of curious when you were showing the distance. That may be part of the problem. They
Might be
don't
some
have
of it.
the blade
might be the
in the
balance
middle.
of it, the way it's set up, yeah, could be. But now the 160 is really super nice. And they designed it especially for for maintenance work. It's got a heavier circle on it too than the 140s. It's a little longer than 140, a little heavier, and it's really well balanced. It's really a
We'll
nice
take 30.
machine. It's a nice
Yeah.
We'll
machine.
take 30 of them.
Really nice.
You sold us. We'll take them.
Bring yours in tomorrow and just let us know.
Yeah, let's try that.
Oh, I sold mine. I don't have nothing anymore. Okay. Shoulder extension go higher in the edges. We talked a little about that, you know, like your shoulders. On some roads they do, but like most of the time, you know, your shoulders round off because you'll have a tendency to pull in loose material from there all the time. So kind of got to watch that. And some of that literature like that, when you open a shell, see, it kind of gives you an idea on moving materials.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Right. Right. Now here, sweep it under the carpet, they say. You know, cut the loose gravel from the edge of the road, windrow to the center, make a small ditch, cut the material loose in the shoulder, put it in the ditch, bring the gravel back across the top. Create a smooth place for the water to drain into the ditch. That's what I kind of mentioned this morning. You know, you could lay your rocks and your trash over there and then dig yourself a ditch. Pull the material up and then pull your trash in it and then blade the material back over the top of it.
I'd love to try that. We have gas
Pardon?
service connections over there, like 6 inches.
Oh yes, you can't do it on some of your streets, you can't. You're faced with water valves and all kinds of things.
I sure
I mean,
would
you
like
really,
to just be able to try that.
as far
one
as
time.
the type of grading you do around a city like this is probably harder than out in the, I like it out in the bush.
Yeah.
You don't have manhole, you don't have nothing to fool with. The only thing you might hit is a stump or a rock. But then you get some horrible projects too to work on. You get some that's all rock. How'd you like to have a job where all you had for the subgrade under the crushed aggregate was all shot rock?
That's what they're doing down there right now.
That's what done at Canyon Creek. That's what
Yeah.
Canyon Creek was all shot
They're
rock.
doing that at Cooper's Landing right now too.
Yeah, that's
I
what I
saw
had to do. I went down there for Kiewit and finished that with my own grader for Canyon Creek, and that's what we had is shot rock to make subgrade. Sometimes you start digging out you just start a rock being sticking up at that high, you go to dig it out. Pretty soon you got a rock like that, and you got to go get a D9 to rip it out. Of course, that's the smallest thing they had down there was a D9. I got Jack Corey down there on a 9. You know Jack? I got him down there. See, he really helped me out. If he hadn't shown up till he pushed the rock in the river, and they didn't run him off because they needed him. I'll tell you a story. Down at Canyon Creek, they built a bridge, beautiful bridge. They had a 8,000 pound concrete square anchor block. Doug Frederiksen, he told Jack, he said, we don't need that anymore. He said, you can push it with a bank or bury it. So Jack had only been there 2 or 3 days. And he gets behind it with that 9, put, goes over the bank, and man, it rolled down the bank. He watches it and it don't stop. It just keeps rolling, down about 300 feet straight down into that stream, see? And that's where all them floaters run. Down the float, guys float, you know, down that,
6 Mile Creek.
yeah. See, so they float down there. So he done this on a Saturday. Well, come Monday morning, man, the notes on the wall over at the office and around on their door was something terrible. Those are really mad. It's all right if nature pushed a rock, rolled a rock down there, but a man-made rock in that stream really upset them. So they thought, well, go get it out of there. They got after Jack, and they told Jack, he said, that one's on us, but don't do it again. So they get a guy in a wetsuit, they get cable, they get a crane, they run down there tying to it, they can't move it. Won't move. But I mean, fish and wildlife, everybody, fish and game,
That's
and the
everywhere.
environmentalists and everybody, Forest Service, they're all down there and they're all complaining about that poor rock in the river, see? Well, how are they gonna get it out of there?
Dynamite.
So, no, they can't do that, kill fish. So we finished up the job that fall and left, and that winter the rock's still there. Well, everything froze over, see? So Mike Grimes and another guy from Wilder, one day they didn't have nothing to do, so they went down to Summit Lake to eat dinner. And they come driving back, and they see this Kiewit pickup sitting there with a compressor behind it running. Put. So they pulled over there and stopped, and they looked over the bank. Here's 2 Kiewit engineers down there with a jackhammer, boo, and 5-gallon buckets, carrying the rock, carrying the concrete over the side, dumping it on the bank.
Oh, shit.
8,000 pounds of it.
8,000 pounds of it. I don't know how much they took out, but they took it out of there.
It made it look like a natural rock.
Yeah, rough it up.
So anyway, that's what could happen with rocks. But you do have a lot harder grading around these city areas and around urban areas than we have out of town, because you got all these obstacles that you have to watch out for. And they're all expensive obstacles, like a water valve. They got to hire somebody to suck the, vacuum truck to clean it out. Manholes, you knock one off and fill it full of gravel. You better get down in there and clean out the trough. If you don't, it's going to back up, and somebody's going to call the city, and you're going to deny, I didn't hit that. I don't know.
When we do that,
Don't ask, don't
if
tell.
we hit them like that, you just leave them. That way, then they'll come out and do something with them, because they don't ever do nothing with them.
Oh, they won't do anything with
No.
it first.
So when we hit them, we just they'll be out. They'll fix it.
They'll come fix it.
They're on the road. Go fix it.
Call them and say,
Gas
hey,
line.
yeah, we knocked one off. You guys better tell them they might
Gas
want to get out of
lines,
here
then you
pretty
got
quick.
These
Because we can't go
fiber
down in
optics
them.
lines now, which they're real bad. But how deep? They go pretty deep with those?
It's supposed to
No
be 3
guarantee
feet.
on anything here.
Yeah.
They don't say how deep anything. It's
They're
just
supposed to
down
be
there.
3 feet though.
Nobody's
It's just
looking
down
at
there.
It's under the dirt, man. Then
Because I've hit them gas services, you know, gas services used to be plastic, well, it used to be copper, bend them over, you know, and then plastic, when you got to bend them over, put tape on them, they stop spewing out gas. But you got an awful job as far as how to go about doing these roads and grading roads, because you just can't take off like you can, like DOT can out in the urban area. They can go pull the ditches, work. They got a lot of room to work. You don't have that. You got driveways and people to contend with, and brush, and all types of things. So like, you know, they tell you, you know, you cut the loose gravel on the edge of the roads, you know, and pull it back, and then you blade the gravel back over on top of it and things like that. Pretty hard for you to do that, because you go digging that deep, you're liable to hit something. It's just, so you're at a disadvantage. Mailboxes to go around? Yeah. If they leave it open, fill it up in the wintertime with snow. They used to do
You
that.
gotta go up with a shovel.
Take a vacuum out, clean those mailboxes
They cut deep ground. Okay. Says setting the grader, lean the wheels to the left, side shift the circle to the right, reach the edge of the road with the blade side shift, pitch the blade slightly forward for good rolling action, articulate the front wheels to the left for better power behind the blade, better visibility, cut the gravel deep enough to hold the shoulder material. The process for cutting and moving the gravel may take several passes. Yeah. After the gravel is windrowed to the center of the road, roll the grass off the shoulder. See? So what they're saying is actually you pull the grass up, blade it across the road, try to work the sod out of it, blade it back off, get rid of it. But that don't work very good. It might work, but it don't work very good. It says try to roll grass the length of the blade to shake the dirt out of the grass. Well, I've never had trouble shaking the dirt out of the grass. It always just balls up on me. To separate the grass, just take several passes, roll the grass-free dirt back in the road surface. That might be ideal if you got, but it does don't work very well. But we was talking about, we started to talk a little about sorting material. Get rid of the big rocks and try to do it. What I found is if I got a pretty good sized windrow, and got a lot of rocks in it, like you say, you can either, you know, you can set down on the windrow about like so, you know, or maybe it's too big to do that with, and blade it over here like this, or straight blade it, and then the rocks roll out both sides and get off money. What I've found is worked pretty good for me a lot of times is I would take my windrow and say I wanted to keep everything about 3 or 4 inches. I put my blade about 3 inches off the ground there, like this, and I bring my blade over here like this where I almost hit the existing grade like that. Then I take this material and I lay it over here like this. Okay? So such a fashion. And then I might turn around again and I might just do the reverse, put the toe down here and blade it over here like this. Rather than, and that way I don't really run over the loose rocks. So if you straight blade it or angle around it to keep your blade without, this way if I run down here, why I'm running on a pretty, say my wheels are running here and over here like this, why I'm pretty much, my wheels aren't bouncing around over big rocks. But if I just run the blade straight across, if I just had the windrow there and I put my blade across like this, why over here I'm probably going to be running over rocks. So I just kind of set my blade on the windrow and keep this end down tight, go across, and then maybe do it again. And then once I get the rocks over here, maybe do it a second time. Once you get rid of the rocks, take the rocks and blade them off the road, and then maybe you'll only have something about so big. But I like to run with my blade down like this at an angle, see, rather than just keep it 3 or 4 inches off the ground. I'd rather put one end down, either the toe or the heel, put the toe down on something solid, and leave the heel a little high. So I feather that material out, and I'm going to leave the big rocks here. Then if I maybe make the second pass, I might just do the opposite. And so then what I'll have is I'll end up with something that will kind of look like this maybe. But it'll be real wide. And that'll be all my material, all my rocks will be here, and I'll get rid of over here. And then all my small stuff will be in there, hopefully. But first I blade up like this. Then I sit in like this, lay it down here like that. I find I don't run over so many rocks that way and bounce around so much. That's one way I've done it. I found worked for me the best. Otherwise, if you just sit on top of it, why, and try to straight blade, why they go out both sides, or if you try to angle like this, why some big ones want to run around. There's only one kind of rock that's a real good rock. That's a crushed rock. That's the only kind of rock that's any good. And if you run graders as long as I have, and you retire, you will not be a rock collector. I don't care how pretty they are, what they look like. You might mine gold, but you're not going to pick up rocks and collect them. If you see something pretty, it don't look pretty to me. I've seen rocks. I run over so many times, and bounce over so much, you want to get on a sledgehammer and beat them to death. You're really getting pissed. You do. That same rock, see.
People grin out their feet and shit out of them.
And I'll tell you, you bounce over the same rock 2 or 3 times, pretty soon you get pretty aggravated. And it seems like you want to, so here you got a rock in the road and you want to blade it out of the way. So you blade over, pretty soon it runs around, you run over it. Well, you make another try at it and the same thing happens. Well, boy, you're really upset then.
While your roller hand is back there holding on with dear life.
Yeah, hold on for dear life. Rolling rocks. We had some horrible rocks up in the Dalton, didn't we?
Yes.
Boy. I see Bob Skelly. He's up at Chattanooga Roadhouse.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, he's buying a little beer there every night.
Is he still with Alice, right?
Yeah, Alice is working up at CCP, I think, Palmer, out there. Okay. Culvert cuts.
Let's see.
Have you ever put in culverts for the grader?
Yes.
Do you? No, yeah. Of course, you just you probably just dig down a V ditch.
Yeah.
V ditch.
After we get located.
Caterpillar shows you a way to do it if you want to. You can dig the V ditch if you want to, but your culvert's round like this, and your ditch is like this. Your ditch is like that. See? So you lay your culvert in there like that.
All right, we'll normally before we roll it in there, we'll get down there and bed it.
You bed it? Do you bed it?
My hand.
Okay. Yeah. But you can do it. What you can do too, maybe you do, is dig your ditch out here like this, like that, and come in here and make you another cut down here like this, and bring that material up there. So what you've done, you've taken that out, and all you've left is a little piece like that. You probably wheel roll that down, it'll kind of come out flat. You lay your culvert in, do that way. Another method Caterpillar says you can do it is you can take your on the H model. I suppose you can do it with the 140s too. You probably do it with the Champions. Put your blade out in back slope position where it's straight up the side, up here like this, and this end of the blade is straight down. Then take your slide board, slide it down in there, and drive ahead. And what it'll do, it'll make a ditch bottom with the curvature of that blade.
Angled backwards like this,
No.
so you're pulling the material out.
So like you set the blade out to back slope, out to side,
Mhm.
like this, stick it way out like this, so it's straight up and down at 90 degrees,
Yeah.
and then line up with your ditch, and take your side shift, your moldboard,
Down.
and stick it down in there, so you go however deep you want, and then just drive ahead. And it'll give you that round bottom.
That's kind of cool.
See, then you might not have to do so much bedding.
Yeah.
So where's the dirt going if you got the moldboard straight up?
Okay, the dirt will just, you don't cut very deep.
You're
The
talking
dirt will
about
just, the dirt will just drag ahead,
Yeah,
because you're only going for about 20 feet probably. See, so the dirt will just drag ahead, and just kind of spill around the sides, and it'll leave you that little round bottom. Might be something you can try sometime. Sometime when you can't, you can't, sometimes it's a little hard to get, you might save you doing a lot of digging, but if you do that bench cut, or like, you cut down here like this, and then maybe if you want to, you can come over here and make another little cut like that and bring the material up, over there and make another little cut, take it over there. Why then, what you've done is that, and you got all that material's out of there basically, and then then all you gotta do is just wheel roll it down, then just kinda wheel roll it up like that, and then you can lay your pipe in. Do it like that. That's the same way you build a flat bottom ditch. More or less. Culvert cuts, see, casting materials, you've done all that. Blading, maintain your own culvert cuts, another specially passed law is able to clean out the end of the plug culvert. And they tell you here, move into first gear, unlock the differential, lean the wheels, etc. Well, in a cul-de-sac, you've all plowed snow in a cul-de-sac, I assume. Probably, you really like these articulating graders because you can just go right around there.
Yeah, but the ones that don't have articulation, they're just as easy.
You just gotta build more.
Yeah, just gotta back up a little bit.
You side shift all the way over and just put a little pressure on this side over here. And then we'll walk
Just
it
spin it
around.
right around.
Lots of chains.
That's if it's frozen, it's hard, huh?
I
Great
guess
little gravel, a little
That's
different.
all I had when I first came on here, cause I got one of the older blades. I didn't have articulation on
Set your
mine.
wheel leans all the way over.
Well, you put the heel down, just put pressure down, it'll pull you around. If it's frozen slick, yeah, no problem, yeah. But in gravel, you can't do that.
No.
No, and it's pretty hard, you know, and especially if you're trying to finish grade a cul-de-sac, you know, you gotta tip your blade over. That's where I was telling you, you know, if you tip the blade over and get it, and then hold the heel a little high. So actually, all you do is just cut your little depth around the curb first. It's a lot easier than trying to watch the heel, watch everything. Then all you have to do is watch the toe. Just come right around. Then the next time you can sit down on that pass, and you can pull right on around. Then you probably make about, like in a cul-de-sac, well, you probably do it anyway. You do it plowing snow, I assume.
Can't always do it.
So what I do is I make one pass around here, like this. Maybe make two passes around here, pull your material out, to where you can back in here. Then once you back in here, then you can start taking everything out here. Then you can back in there and just keep moving it forward, like with gravel. If you're getting ready to pave, you can move everything out to here and go, pull everything up to center. But once you get it far away from the curb there, then you can back in there and bring it out. Cul-de-sacs are hard to do no matter what you do, how you do them. Whoever designed them, I don't know, but they're hard to work with. Of course, you plow all the snow up in the middle of it, don't you?
Yeah. You try to put it in kind of a dome shape in the middle of
Yeah.
it? Or?
Right. But a cul-de-sac, a cul-de-sac, you'll have center line coming here, say with 2%. It'll come right down there to 2%. But you got to remember, this distance here is maybe maybe this distance here is only 15 feet. See? So you'd be your center is probably three inches higher. Your crown is, but over here you might be 30 feet. See? So if you follow at 2%, why you'd be 6/10 high, you'd be way high. So usually what it is usually a cul-de-sac. And the center line will come back here and then it'll just drop off and go to your curb. But this will probably be a 1%. It'll be a lot flatter back there because you're wider. See? See if you came right in, see? So that has to be about a 1%. So this kind of slopes from the back up to the front, up to the top, and then you come in at your regular standard crown, and it's usually 1% this way. That's the way they're built. You guys don't get in the construction end of it though, do you? Too much? But if a cul-de-sac gets all broke up and out of shape, you have to go reshape it sometimes, I suppose,
Yeah,
don't you?
yeah.
You do that, don't you? Tear them up?
Yeah.
Rip up the asphalt and so
Yeah.
forth? But that's a method to use. That worked the best for me is go in and I grade the road last. Because you got and another thing, like you're working around cities where you got dead end streets and you got cul-de-sacs, okay? Never work your way into a corner, work your way out. Always bring your material out. Like you got a dead end street, work from the dead end out. Don't work your material into it. Like a cul-de-sac, don't come here and work all your material into the cul-de-sac. Work your cul-de-sac first before you do the street. Work the cul-de-sac first. Get it all shaped. You got any X material, take it out to the street, and then add your material. Don't work yourself into a corner. Of course, you don't do parking lots around buildings or anything like that, but if you get in a parking area, I suppose the municipality has some parking areas, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
So you got some parking areas you have to work into, like you plow snow in the parking area. You don't work yourself into a corner, you go to the corners and work yourself out. You work away from the buildings and away from the obstacles to the center. Do the same thing with dirt, like you're grading a parking lot or anything like that. Work all your corners out first. Work all the hard areas out to the middle first. Then clean up the center. Works pretty easy that way. Don't work yourself into a corner. I tell you one thing, maybe the most important thing about curbs, like I said this morning earlier, is don't blade too much material over to the curb. And don't, if you're trying to fill a corner, don't push very much up there. Go short, because you can always add material, but it's hell to get it back out of there. Especially the grader, because the grader's like a bulldozer, but it's got the wheels in front of the blade instead of behind it.
Yeah.
So it'll give you trouble, you can't get that material out of there. So you want to be careful and do things like that, but you don't get into that too much. But you do rebuild cul-de-sacs, so that's what I would do. See, and I work my way around the cul-de-sac till I can get the material away from the back of the cul-de-sac, where far enough back to where I can set the grader down, and then find out where your center line is, where your center of the cul-de-sac is. Find out the center of the cul-de-sac, and you have to have some kind of elevation there to go by. You have to have something to go by. You have to have something you just can't eyeball. You can, I guess, but don't work too good. So if you got a center to go by there, see, and then a center line out of your cul-de-sac, you know, where you come in, you got some hubs there someplace. Well, then you can start here and you can start working your way out here and get your material out, get out of the cul-de-sac. But cul-de-sacs aren't very easy to do. Washboards, corrugated, hit the blade forward. We discussed some of that this morning. But like I say, with the sharp edge, that's the only way. Is you get the sharp edge. But if you can tip it forward just a little, even cutting ice, you might try, just ship it far enough forward to where it starts to cut. When it quits cutting, tip a little more. Then you got to go roll it back again and start over. I don't know if you do that or not, or maybe you just tip it all the way over and start.
No.
You always get the
You do a
question,
little bit at a
somebody's
time?
got it
Work it,
tipped
yeah,
over
work it
on
forward
Okay.
and like say come all the way back.
Yeah, go again,
Start
yeah.
again.
Yeah. And the only reason it works that way is, and you found out too, that when you got it tipped forward, pretty soon you build up the material, you can't push nothing. Then you got to roll it back and get rid of your load.
Well, when you
Move it
start
out.
rolling it too forward, then you can't use your gate.
Right,
On
you
the
can't,
snow.
that's true, the gate will hang up on it. But you gotta use, okay, yeah.
So you got a certain little area you can
You
work
got a
with.
certain area you can go at before the gate will hit.
Right. And that's how can we see the gates all, once these gates wore down at an angle in the front. People love doing that.
Most times the guy peeling's the guy cutting centers anyway, so he's either got no gate or gate in the air
Right.
anyway.
What's nice is always these serrated, or not the serrated edge, but the carbide tip blades. They're nice. But what they do on some of the bigger graders, they put them on the back, put them on a ripper. Like a North Slope, they put them on a ripper.
Yeah.
Well, they really cut. See, if you had something like that, well, then you really don't have to tip over and cut too much. You can just use that, loosen it up, and then move it right out of the way. Washboards, tip the blade forward, keep the cutting edge perpendicular surface, level the high spots and fill the low spots. While on haul roads, remember, loaded vehicles have the right of way. That's another thing. I don't know how you work it. Truck's got the right of way. And the other thing is, those trucks, you think, you don't like them, but you need them. And be nice to them. Don't call them names. Don't give me any trouble, because I know an operator that called him names. The truck driver pulled him out of the truck and put dirt in his mouth. He said, "How you like that?" So you don't want to do that. You be good to them, and if you talk to them and ask them and show them what you want and explain to them, they'll do pretty much what you need done. Because they're just like you are, and you got to communicate. And they can't read your mind, you can't read theirs. But one thing, though, you have to give them the right of way. But it is aggravating sometimes to give them the right of way. But you got to give them the right of way.
That's fine, man.
You do. Well, on the haul roads, you remember, loaded vehicles have the right of way, let the dust settle before you continue to haul road. Maintaining potholes, just filling them seldom solves the problem. Scar-firing the areas around the pothole and the pothole itself and loosen the surrounding area. Lift the scar fire before turning. Windrow the scar-fired material, work the material from side to side. Bring in more material as needed. Water it if it's dry, compact it. Okay. So anyway, most of you know something about maintaining haul roads, which you probably will never do, but it's no different really than not here maintaining your roads, streets, getting the potholes out. And about the only thing I can say, you know, when I first started years and years ago, an old fella told me, I said, how do you do this? He said, you just blade it from one side to the other till you get it like you want it. That's all he ever told me. But basically that's kind of what you do. You do. But he didn't tell me you have to maintain a certain profile that you do that. Which you have to do. Basically that's what you do. If you got, the more times you can move it around, the better the road will be. But you're faced with time. You're limited with time, so you can only do so much. And do the best you can with what you got to work with. Sometimes you can take a road and you can go through and you can cut it down, rough it up, and lay the material back out, and it's pretty rocky, and go off and leave it for 2 or 3 hours and work another section, and then you can come back and then tight blade the rocks off. But people bitch while it's like that. You know what they do, but you got to be able to come back, because if you don't, you leave it the next day, they really complain. I don't know if you do that or not. We go into ditching. Okay, first I'll show you a video on ditching and sloping here, and then we'll discuss it. And like you say, some of you haven't done much of that.
That way you don't take it down those mailboxes.
Be taking out
Here's what we'll cover in this segment. Level blading, cutting V ditches, ditch cleanup, cutting high banks, and working on slopes. 2 things to keep in mind when operating a motor grader: find the right gear for the application and drive straight. That may sound like simple advice, but practicing those will keep your productivity high. Level grading. The first application we're going to look at is level grading. For this, we want to make sure the center shift lock pin is in the center position. Now let's move the mold board angle so we can roll the windrow outside the tandems. A windrow is that trailing ridge of dirt that's left after the grader makes its pass. After your mold board angle is set, tip the mold board so it's slightly ahead of the cutting edge. Note how the toe or leading edge of the mold board just barely touches the already finished surface, while the heel carries the grade. Make sure you're positioned over the windrow so you don't lose any material around the toe of the mold board. This technique works fine on an average-sized windrow, but how do you handle a big one? Here's the technique. Articulate the frame so your rear tandems run parallel with the windrow. Also, lean the front wheels to the delivery side. These 2 additional positions will give you what you need to get the job done. Cutting V ditches. Another very common grader application is cutting V ditches. This is what a finished one looks like. To cut one, you first want to make sure the center shift lock pin is in the center position. Set the toe of the mold board in line with the outer edge of the right front tire. Tilt the mold board slightly ahead and raise the left lift cylinder to a higher position. Now lean the wheels to the left and lower the right lift cylinder to allow you to make your first pass, a shallow marking pass. This is how your grader should look from the front. Now go ahead and make your pass. On the second pass, make the cut deeper and angle the mold board to deliver the material between the tandems. As the ditch becomes deeper, keep angling the mold board until the material is delivered outside the tandems. It's also a good idea to articulate the rear of the machine slightly away from the ditch wall. This prevents tire sidewall damage. Ditch cleanup. Now it's time to set up for cleaning the shoulder. Leave the lock pin in the center position and set the mold board to deliver the material between the tandems. Now go ahead and make your pass. On your next pass, you want to move the material outside the tandems so you can begin building the roadbed. Or if you like, you can move the windrow out onto the roadbed to be picked up. This last pass can also be performed in the crab position that you see here. Cutting the V-ditch backslope. Our next setup is unique. It's used to cut the backslope of the V-ditch you just cut. The first step is to move the center shift lock pin. Be sure your mold board is grounded before you make the move. Now side shift the mold board as far right as it will go. Then raise the toe of the blade, and at the same time lower the heel. You'll also need to pull the center shift lever back. This brings the blade out from under the machine as the circle rotates. You should come to a stop when the heel of the mold board is in front of the right rear tire. The next step is to tip the mold board at least 3/4 forward. This provides a clean pass and eliminates gouges. To determine the angle of your slope, move your right lift cylinder up or down. For a heavy cut, lean your wheels toward the slope. For a lighter cut, lean away from the slope. This is how you should look as you make your pass. Remember to drive straight and use the best speed for maintaining a smooth cut. After you're satisfied with the bank, get ready to clean up the ditch. First, you simply reverse the procedure that put the blade into the high bank position. Raise the left lift cylinder while lowering the right. Also, push on the center shift lever. This will swing the circle and mold board back under the grader. Then, move the center shift lock pin back to the center position, as you see here. Now set the toe of the mold board behind the front tire. Lower the lift cylinder until the mold board is at the depth of the ditch. Set the right lift cylinder to deliver the material onto the shoulder without cutting. Now lean the front wheels slightly. You may need a second pass to move all the material out of the ditch and onto the shoulder. Now you're ready to spread the material and finish the final grade. And be careful not to cut the top of the slope with the toe of the mold board. Cutting a high bank. Another key motor grader application is cutting a high bank. The first step is to prepare the surface at the base of the slope. You want it to slightly slope into the bank. This prevents the machine from slipping away. Then put the mold board in the same position you would use to cut a V-ditch backslope. Shift the mold board all the way right. Circle the toe of the mold board toward the front tire. Now raise the toe and lower the heel at the same time until the heel is set in front of the right rear tire. The next step is to tip the mold board at least 3/4 forward. This provides a clean pass and eliminates gouges. Once you have the mold board set to your desired slope angle, you can control the depth of the cut by leaning the front wheels. For a heavy cut, lean into the slope. For a lighter cut, lean away from the slope. As you make your pass, try to cast the material inside the slope side tandems as much as possible. To clean up after your bank cut, reposition the grader for shoulder cleanup. Set the toe at the depth of the slope and set the heel to cast material onto the flat grade. In this situation, it's a good idea to lean the front wheels slightly to the left. By this time, you should be getting a little more comfortable with what the grader can do. Let's look at another technique. Grading on a slope. This next application we're going to show you is a little trickier, and before you try to do this, make sure you're completely familiar with your machine. Every once in a while, you may be called to grade on a slope. Now, this is important. Never fully articulate your machine uphill on a side slope. That's a major violation of safe, sensible operation. Also, always travel at a safe speed. If it's possible, the best way to start grading on a slope is to start at the top and work your material down the slope. The first pass can be made in the straight frame mode. The remainder of the passes are made in the straight frame or crab mode, depending upon the conditions. What the crab mode does is give you more stability by giving you a wider stance on the slope. We've found that the best crab position is about halfway articulated. Finally, as you make your pass, cast the material just outside the tandems. This way, the windrow will help hold the machine on the slope. Keep making passes until you're satisfied with the slope. Then you're free to move the windrow wherever you want. Ditch crossing. There's one last thing we want to show you today. That's the proper way to cross ditches. Don't drive across them with your front tires. This can damage the tie rods and tie rod ends. It's better to back across the ditch, then turn and pull out. Well, that's about it. Let's say that was your last job of the day. Time to shut the machine down and head for home.
That's in the States, it ain't here.
Be sure to lower your mold board and rotate it around under the machine for room and safety. Before you shut the grader down, let the engine run at low idle for about 5 minutes. This allows the engine to cool better and prevents accelerated engine wear. And it's also a good time to do any paperwork or reporting. One last thing. Be sure to turn off the electrical disconnect switch. Well, so far today, we've shown you some of the most common motor grader applications. And as you gain experience,
Okay, that's some applications that they use. Like on ditching, like I mentioned earlier this morning, like when you start into that ditch, you gotta remember that you're gonna have to lift the blade up because the wheels are gonna go down in it. Definitely, no problem. Now, the way they showed that, they showed you have the blade way out the side like that and sticking straight up in the air. You can do that if you're gonna cut a real steep slope. But if you have to cut a flatter slope, you're going to have to rotate the blade forward more, and you probably can't cut a slope any higher than about 3 or 4 feet at a 2-to-1, because you'll have to, because when it's up like that, you just can't get it out that way. So you have to circle it around forward more, like for a 2-to-1 slope, to get in, like they say, bring your heel in inside your rear tandem, and you have to angle more. The flatter the slope, you'd have to angle more. So I don't stick it. If they're sitting a straight bank straight up and down, you can run it straight up in the air, but usually about 4 feet is all you can really reach and do a good job on. And you don't want to try to stick the blade above it, angle around like this and cut it. It's better. Now, one reason they said tip the mold board forward. If you don't tip the mold board forward the way this machine is built, why I don't know, this part will drag on your slope if you don't tip it forward. The underneath side of what carries the mold board will drag on your slope. So it will.
Nice love.
Such as that. So, and of course, I don't know, have all of you released the center shift pin before? Has any of you done that? Some of you done it, some of you haven't? You never done
Yeah,
it?
that's a little, right there on your side
Yeah,
right there.
Yeah. What you do, to do it, you just set the grader blade down lightly, not too heavy, and then you release it. Sometimes you might have to work the controls slightly to get it to release because they will stick. And I suppose the Champion's same way.
Yeah.
Same way. Same principle.
Yeah.
But we're not saying any one product's better than another here. We just want to
We are.
Yes, we are.
we got an opinion. But anyway, you have to maybe work it slightly this way and jiggle it a little bit to get it to pop loose. Then it release. A good thing to get the mechanics to put anti-seize on the hole and around. That'll help you out sometimes because they will stick. Then once you do that, and like on a Caterpillar, if you slide your blade all out this way, bring it all out to one side and everything, and your drawbar and everything to one side, sometimes you bring it too far, and then you can't pop the pin back in. You can't do that. So it's better to leave it like this when you do it, and then you can. Let's see, I don't know how you see. You lift this side, you push down on the other side. I think one way or the other, but you just have to feel it out. So you push down and lift up on one side, and what it'll do, it'll slide this rack around, or this center shift will come over, and there's an indicator that it showed you there with marks on it to wherever you want to set it. And once you get in there, then you, wherever probably those 140s got a latch back here on the console for starting. Okay, where it shows the other ones have a button down there you push, and then it has an indicator, which is pretty nice, because you can see right where the pin is, whether it's off center or there, and you can see when it goes in, the light comes off and comes out on those. Does the Champion have something like that too, an indicator? They have it.
I haven't done anything with that.
You haven't looked at the new ones?
I haven't done the champ.
Yeah, the Champions, they got their bar isn't curved like
It's straight
yeah,
across.
it's straight across.
The new H models is the same way,
Oh yeah.
and then where the lift arms, where it attaches down in here, there's a hole on the outside of that bar. The bar extends clear out past here and hold outside. And so you can, with the new H models, you can put the blade clear out to the side and cut any slope you want without running the front wheels up on a slope. With these 140s, you got to angle around and put the front wheels up to get it to go. Like I was saying this morning, you got to bring it over like this, and this will run down in your catch, and the other one up on the slope.
I mean,
You do it.
Champions are kind of weird because the way they built it, if you're off to the one side with your center shift,
Uh-huh.
it hits that rack and you can't bring your blade up all the way that you normally can.
Hmm.
It's hard to explain. If you move it in your center shift.
You can't do it. Yeah, you can. You get it all the way over, and you can only get your blade up just a little bit. One
Yeah.
side, you're dragging it around. If you're trying to keep it under you, you can only get it up this high off the ground if you're shifted all the way over.
Yeah.
But if you're if you're up in a hillside and you're shaping some road, pulling some ditches, cutting some slopes, and you're starting out from scratch and you got an old ratty slope up there that they brushed and you got to clean it up. What you want to do is what you so say you got something that looks like this maybe. Then you got out there. Well, you got to dig a ditch and you got to get rid of that. Maybe they want the ditch clear back to here. Maybe this is where ditch is supposed to be. You got to clean that up. And maybe you're going to start up here with your catch. See, you're going to start your slope there. You're going to come down here like this. Okay. Well, that's too much material to be able to slope. So you got to get rid of it some way. So you probably just take your grader and you just want to reach up here and you want to start pulling material down, pulling it down, pulling it down. Get it down in here someplace. Get it down in here. Once you get it down in there, and then you can cut it out of there and you can lay it all over here and pile it up and get rid of it. But you got to get it out of there some way. So say you've roughed that in and you got it roughed in something like that down there. Well, you got to know what kind of slope you want. So say you're going to be a 2-to-1 slope. If it's going to be a 2-to-1 slope, 2-to-1 slope, well, you got to have somebody with a hand level, a grade checker, or somebody to check it, or you take a shot on, and you take, for example, you stand here and you take a shot from here, up here. You find out. So say, for example, this is 4 feet down to where this existing, where you've made this pass. At this time, you might want to have to come deeper. Come further down, like on a road job. They'll keep hauling dirt and keep moving further and further for a high cut. Okay, so the grade checker, he takes a shot there, and he shoots this 4 feet. the elevation's 4 feet. Well, at 2 to 1, that's 8 feet out. So say he measures out here and here 8 feet is. So he drops a rock and it hits right here. Okay, well, right down here is where the toe of your slope should be. So what you do is you want to put a ribbon or a marker or something there and do that at every station down along your slope. Then you come in with your grader and you're going to cut vertical, right straight down there like that. And you're going to lay that material out here. Get it out of your way. Okay? Now, you can take your motor grader, put it right in there like that, and position your blade so it's here inside the tandems and comes up here like this. Like so. Position it in there like that. And all you got to do is just follow that vertical cut. And keep your toe up here, keep your toe there. You got your heel set, leave it alone. And just keep your toe. Once you get the toe set, leave it alone, because it's hard to explain, but if the heel goes like this, you don't want to follow in and out. And by making this vertical cut and lining up on every station, all you have to do is drive that grader through there and it'll cut that slope for you. Got the picture? You've done? Okay. So what you want to do first, though, is you get the loader or the dozer or something to move the heavy material out of your slope so you can get it pretty well roughed in. And also what you can do is, what you want to do is like, if you get a dozer in there to do it or something, first take a shot with a hand level and see where the toe should be. So he knows where to dig. So he knows where to go. Then what he can do, see, is he can come in and cut a lot of that away. He can get up on there and cut it off. And then all you have to do is come and finish it up. Just make one light cut.
A lot of the jobs that we're on now are actually adding material. We're taking bad material out of the roadway and using it for backslope material. And so we're actually, and then some of them too, there'll be hills and there's valleys and stuff in there, so we're adding and kind of making it one constant backslope all the way down the road, filling in the top, you know, so
Okay.
it looks a
Yeah.
little better.
But you can also, like here, like once they've roughed it in, why you can even roll your moldboard back the other way,
You kind of drift it up.
and you can drift the material up the slope too.
Right.
So you can't, it won't slide up, but you can at least dress the slope up and clean it up pretty nice that way.
Right.
What are you smiling about? So anyway, that's the procedure you use to cut a back slope. But 4 feet is about the limit to what you can really reach, unless you have a steeper slope, and then you can reach more. If you got like a real 1-to-1 or something, you can reach way up there. Otherwise, if you got to reach higher, which a lot of times they cut you higher, what you got to do is then you'll just have to kind of set the blade out there, and you'll have to kind of drive up on the slope. Cut it down. Do it that way. But that's a good way to do it. See, is you make that. If you make that vertical cut, and you know where that toe is, that's what he's got. Grade checker's got to tell you. Why then, all you got to do is drive right straight down and follow each cut at each station, and it'll cut your slope right off for you without any effort at all. Make it a lot easier. It's a lot easier. But you got to know where that is. You know, if you want to see. And then once you see, like on a construction project, what they do, see, is you cut that slope there, and you got that material laid out there like that, then you pull that away, just leave it there, and then what they do is they'll come in with scrapers, and they'll do more like that, see? Then you're gonna have to cut the slope again, bring it down here, see? And they'll just keep coming down that same way. But you have to do it every 4 feet, but then nowadays too, on the construction project, they got these cats with a slope board, and they use the dozer and the slope board to do a lot of it with. But if you have to do it with a grader, you can do it that way. With the 140s, you'll have to run if it's a 2-to-1 slope, you have to run a front wheel, partial up on the slope like this, like that. So you have to articulate, see, because it just, the way it's set up, the rack won't let you go over far enough. And that's why you have to do it that way with the 140s. I don't know about the Champions. Can you get the Champions out? How do they work like that?
But we haven't used them in the dirt very much.
You haven't used them in the dirt?
No. You just mainly take the cats
When we get on
out.
the field, we'll see if we can set one up.
Okay.
And when we get out there, why, we can also show you how to set it. You know, we can all release the blade, set it, show you how to position the machine, how to position the blade anyway to do it. Even though we don't have any slopes out there to cut, we can at least position the blade how we would cut a slope. You go about
Well,
doing
we
it.
could take and go over
we
against
have
one of these
done it.
piles and do it. One of the sand sweeping piles or something right there. We got a huge sweeping pile.
Yeah.
See right there? We got one
White
right there.
pile there?
All those piles over there, you know, sweeping
Pete
piles?
did some
Oh,
sloping
I
up
see,
in
yeah.
Thorough Creek.
That big sweeping pile over there?
Yeah, okay,
We could hit it there.
okay. Well, they got our graders out there at the job where
And
we're
they're
gonna
gonna
work.
get it on that.
But when we get through over there, we could bring one of them back, or we could get another grader here.
There's
Yeah,
nothing out there. That's just that pile there's all the sweepings over the years stacked up there. So
Okay,
there's
I'll
nothing
talk
we
to
can
Valerie
do.
about it, maybe when we get through out there, we can drop in here the last day, and then what we can do is we can cut on the slope. That'd be good. I think that's a good idea. Had a class in Fairbanks, and we was out in an area there where it was a large area where they built some modules, and had about a quarter-mile road, and then I had about maybe 1,000 feet of road, and that had a back slope on it, so we could cut the back slope. Then we had a big area that was all gravel, nice gravel. They got nice gravel in Fairbanks. They don't have that big rock like you got. They got rock like that. That's one thing about Fairbanks. So what we could do is we could go out on this big pad that was all gravel, and we could cut ditches like 2 and 3 feet deep. You know, pull them out, cut the back slope, pull a shoulder, and we could shape a road out of it. We cut these back slopes. Then I had the one that was about a half a mile of road that I could work on just to maintain. You know, to maintain, bring it in and maintain it. And then I had the other section where there was a back slope and a ditch, and that worked really nice. That was an ideal situation to train with. That worked really good. Okay. The video, I think, covered. Let's see, anything more I can add to that? Well, after you, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that a little more. Okay, so say I've cut the back slope, and I got all that material piled up there. Okay, and I got my end slope coming up here on the road. Now I got to get that material out of there without, well, actually that material, if my wheel track's in there, that material would be laying more like this, probably. My wheel track would be there. I got to get that material out there without it running around the end of my blade. Well, it's like they showed you in the video. See, you sit down that ditch and put your wheel there, and set your grader in here, of course, but then carry your moldboard high, like this. Carry your moldboard up here like this, so that material falls there, like that. Because what it does then your material has fallen like that, and you haven't run it, because if you try to pull it all the way up the length of that moldboard, the resistance is so great that it'll run around the toe of the blade if you got much to pull. And then you'll have a dirty end, see? And then, of course, your hind tire comes along there and smashes it down so you don't see it, hopefully. But if you do it like this first, then set in there again, and then take that material and pull it up here like this, then you can come on up the slope without it running around the end of the blade. But if you try to pull it the first pass, it's going to run around the end of the blade on you. So it just pays to make that first pass and hold high, and then make the second pass. That way you don't pile dirt back up there on the slope or something like that, and then you have to recut the slope and re-pull it again. And that's what they were trying to tell us in the video also. And then he was also showing you, like I explained to you this morning, see, you bring that material up on a shoulder, you got it up here, see, and then he showed you how to put your blade in under you and pull it. Well, once you get set like that, if you control anything, control the heel, and like I say, like you were mentioning too, see, it's like you can always come back and set on that again, see. So even if you do pull it that way and you hold it a little high here, like that, with your blade a little high, why, when you come back in and pick this windrow up here, well, your blade will set back across here like this, again. So your blade's out here and it's come across here like that. So you'll correct anything you've done, and you can cut a little bit off if you've messed it up. And another thing I think is a good idea, if you make a pass, and it ain't right, it ain't a bad idea, before you go any further, you just take that material, lay it back, and go again. Instead of go clear across the road and then come clear back and try to fix it. Fix it before you go. questions on that? Any ideas on ditching? Anything you've done with ditching is different? You guys done much ditching?
Quite a bit.
No good.
You have? Okay.
Well, just maintaining ditches. or
Just
repair.
maintain ditches?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, like they say, there's 3 kinds of ditches. The drainage ditch, interceptor ditch. Okay. I guess they call that a farm type ditch. Actually, interceptor ditch. The interceptor ditch, you probably don't. Might be a good idea. Some places you want to use it. The interceptor ditch or interception ditch is usually found at the top of a cut slope. Like when you go to Seward, or no, when you go to Saldana, down toward Copper Center, or not Copper Center, but Cooper's Landing down that way. When you get past Canyon Creek, the next project down, you'll notice that all the slopes got a big ditch behind them. They run over the top of the hill, like that. What they do is catches the water and brings it off over the bank, over the ends of the hill, so it doesn't run over the slope and erode. And they call it, that's an interceptor ditch. And the next time you go down to down in that area, go past the Hope Cutoff there, about 20 miles, well, you'll see the big ditches behind all those slopes they put them in. That's an interceptor ditch. They work quite well, because like when you get a lot of runoff, a lot of water, if you'll just dig that interceptor ditch up there. Of course, a lot of times you don't have right of way, but if you got a little dozer or anything, you can dig that interceptor ditch and it'll stop that erosion coming down. You can dig them with a grader too if you get up on top. One time we done a project, lots of cuts and lots of fills, and all the slopes back then, they wanted all the slopes, like your hill coming like this, you know, and they wanted all the slopes to be rounded like that, then come down. Well, they just done them like this. Then I had to get up here and round them all off. A little scary. And then we had to dig an interceptor ditch, see. So if you dig an interceptor ditch, you want to dig the interceptor ditch back here, dig it down this way, and throw your dirt up here and pile it up there and leave it like that. That way the dirt you pile up will be more of a barrier for the water running off here. And then it'll run over the side of the hill. Okay, that's an interceptor ditch. It's usually just a V ditch. It's usually constructed in conjunction with slope rounding, relationship on highway construction. Eliminates excess time spent on doing the slope rounding twice. Okay, that shows you a picture of an interceptor ditch, but they make a real nice one. Cutting V ditches. Use a straight frame mold for both right and left-hand ditching. Set their center lock pin in the center position to position the blade angle at 45 degrees. That's what they showed us. Tilt the mold brush slightly ahead, raise the left cylinder to a higher position, lean the wheels to the left, lower the right lift cylinder. Cutting V ditches. All of that was covered pretty much in the video. They just showed us V ditches, but there's flat bottom ditches. I don't like flat bottom ditches. I don't know if you ever make any flat bottom ditches? You ever do any of that? You ever make any flat bottom ditches? Well, you'll see flat bottom ditches someplace on these projects. They'll have flat bottom ditches. And actually, sometimes where there's a lot of runoff, a lot of water, they need a lot of room, they'll make a flat bottom ditch. A lot of times they just create a flat bottom ditch to get more borrowed material to build a road bed. But to build a flat bottom ditch with a grader, some of them, some flat bottom ditches are like 10 or 12 feet wide where you can get right down in them. And some are just about 3 or 4 feet wide. So then you gotta cut your slope, like I showed you. Cut your slope, got your material there. And of course, then what you have to do is just, you have to, this is gonna be your end slope over here is where it's supposed to be, but your material is in like this. So you gotta get rid of all that some way. So you just start pulling it out of here, and just start working your way in, working your material out, and just keep piling up. But you're gonna get quite a lot of material, so you gotta pull it away eventually and get it away from yourself. You gotta keep doing it until you get down into here, down to this point here, see? Then you've got all that material out of there. You're down to that point. Well, then you're something like that. Well, then what you do is you set in over here, and what you're gonna do is make several cuts. You're gonna make a cut here, down here, like, you're gonna make it, well, not like that. God, that's horrible, I could hit. Okay. So you've got it down here like this. So what you gotta do then, you got this material still laying in here some probably, so you just sit over here and make a V cut down and bring your material over. Go down here, make another cut over about a foot from it, keep pulling your material over, make another one like that. So you end up with something that's gonna look like this in the bottom, like that in the bottom, when you pull that material out of there. Okay, now what you got to do is get in there, put your blade in under yourself, and cut those off, lay that material over there, crowd it against there, and then you're going to have to pull it back up the slope. Sometimes, if it's a little bitty flat bottom ditch, only 2 or 3 feet wide, you can just do something like that and wheel roll it down, rather than pull it out. They're not easy to make. I don't like flat bottom ditches. Then they got a U ditch. You got backhoe to do that.
Dry.
Canadians use a lot of those U ditches like that, and they get way out away from the, you see if you drive down Alaska Highway, you'll see them out there 20, 30 feet away from the toe of the slope. They go way out to catch the drainage. Do a good job at it. But it says flat bottom ditch sets the right, set the right side, front and back wheels in the ditch. Full length of the blade should be placed level along the bottom of the ditch. That's if you've got a wide flat bottom ditch. Place the toe behind the front wheel, place the heel at the base of the V trench. It is important to work in first gear. Yeah, work in whatever gear you feel comfortable with. Avoid biting the outslope of the toe of the blade. Another thing too, when you go to dig a ditch, keep in mind that you position the blade out here, so it's in line with the outer front wheel. But when you put the blade down in the ground, it goes inside the wheel. So actually you want to position it just a little bit on the outside of the front wheel, so that when you penetrate the earth, then it's in line with the wheel. You'll see that when you first time you do it. Okay. First, okay. Okay, well, I'll start up here. Flat bottom ditch is used when ditch must be widened to provide more capacity. First step is to cut another V ditch on the inside slope of the first ditch. Distance from the first ditch depends on the required width of the flat bottom ditch. More than one cut may be required to make the second ditch or similar depth of the ditch, resulting in windrow should be moved out of the way. Flat bottom ditch, once second ditch is cut, set the right front and back wheels in the ditch. Full length of the blade should be placed level along the bottom of the ditch. Place the toe behind the front wheel, place the heel at the base of the V ditch. It is important to work in first gear, keep the machine steady, avoid biting into the outslope. On leaning wheel graders, lean top of wheels away from the ditch. Okay. There it gives you a cross section of a flat bottom ditch. You'd be surprised how much of an angle you can get on that blade if you really want to. One time we was over on Tudor Road and we was taking out some curb. We only had a place about that wide. We could take like a 140, articulate around and angle a blade in under you, and you could get it to where you only cut that wide. Kind of hard to do, but it will work. So flat bottom ditches, but you don't get involved in flat bottom ditches too much. First thing to do when cutting a ditch is lay out a line. That's what I said before. Just drive a line if you want to, or put a lath down there where you want to drive to. Of course, what you want to do though, if you want your ditch, you don't want to put the lath in line with your ditch. If you want to put your ditch, for example, if you want to put if the ditch is going to be here, you're gonna drive in this ditch here, why, you better come over about 4 feet and put your lath out here. And then you drive the center of the grader right toward that lath. See? And then you'll make your ditch over here. See, because it's pretty hard if you set in this, you set in here with your grader, you set in this ditch with the grader, make your cut. However, if you set in there with a grader, make your cut, while your ditch is here, you're cutting over across here like this, bringing material out. So you want to put your lath so it's in center with down ahead of you, so it's in line with the center of that grader. Out 4 feet or so away from the center. Step off and see what distance is from the outer tire to the center of the grader and set your lath there and drive to that. That's the best, the easiest way to do it. Don't set it in the center of the ditch. And if a grade checker or someone sets you a lath where he wants the center of the ditch, then you go put a mark, come out away from it 4 feet or so. Then drive right straight down the frame to it. That's better than trying to off to the side. So it says lay out a line. It can be marked with stakes visible from the cab to assist with cutting it straight. When ready to start, angle the blade sharply. Place the toe leading edge behind the blade, set the toe tight and raise the heel up. And the other thing, if you put a lath and just put a mark there, just drive straight. And if you get off a little bit, well, you can correct it next time by leaning the wheels one way or the other. You can kind of correct it, and then you should drive down the ditch, straighten it up. And then after it rains a few times, you get a few snowstorms, you can't tell whether it's crooked or not.
How do you incorporate that into a curve though? Like you say, setting up a lath?
Oh, into a super?
No, just like as if the road curves a little.
Oh, if the road makes a curve, yes. Like a curve, sure. Well, then what you'd have to do is every,
You set your stakes and pace it off. And then
you pace it off.
Just
You
Yeah.
can take your can of paint or something and just walk your line around.
You can do it that way too if you wanted to. You could take a can of paint around. A lot of times, what they'll do is like the grade checker or whoever, like I told you, when you get in transition or in a super, sometimes the stakes are closer together. So what he'll do is he'll just measure or make you a paint mark at every station, and you just follow right around. Follow right around the super like that, or curve, whatever you do. Or you can take a paint can and go around there. Okay. Or like radiuses, you do, I don't know, you get involved in any radius of driveways, you don't build any driveways. Yeah, you do a lot of cross streets and so forth too,
You do a lot of
Yeah.
radius work.
You do a lot of radius work, don't you?
Yeah.
They don't even give you a radius point, do they? You just make whatever.
Yeah, we make whatever we want.
That looks good.
One side could be a big radius, one a little one.
Yeah.
We're getting pretty good at it, actually.
Are you?
You get eyeballing them.
Oh. Okay.
Who's ever in charge of the paint cans in charge of the radius?
Actually, what we do is we draw out the center line, measure off your road, the
Right.
main road, and then we just
Eyeball it.
eyeball our radiuses. Or take a string and kind of lay it in there around it. Depends on.
Well, you could do it. You could do it like so, like lay it out like that.
Yeah, and then we just lay
And
it in
then,
there.
then what you can do is, if you want a 15-foot radius, well, you can just measure back here from this point, back here 15 feet, and then measure over here 15 feet, and then come here 15 feet, measure over 15 feet, and then you have a radius point. And then what you do is you just take 15-foot tape, put it here, just
And
start
then walk
back,
around.
start back
Walk in
here,
the
and just
paint
walk
line.
right around with it. See?
Just kind of describe it.
See? Like that.
Yeah.
So just make it first, just square up your road, square up your intersection with some paint cans or however you want to do it. See? And then just, if you want a 15-foot or 10-foot or 20-foot radius on each corner, just measure back from this point 20 feet, and then go here 20 feet, and then measure here 20 feet, so you get this in the right place. Then you just go from here, and just come right around there like that. See, that'd be an easy way to make it.
Laying it down. That's a good curve, man.
Yeah. Well, this way, then you just take a paint can and you go right around there, see, and then you follow it right around.
That's excellent.
I think I do that when you're like putting down some wrap or something like that, where you want nice, good radiuses the same way. That's what I would do, And I don't know what their standard radiuses are in the city. What are your standard radiuses?
Well,
I don't think
I'm
there is a
sure if-
standard.
I'm sure that when they do build a road, a new road, and that contractor sets them what they should be.
Yeah.
But
the
over the
plan-
years,
the
they
plans
get
will tell them what
they
should
get
do.
busted out in that. We
Shoot
just
up and shit.
we just mainly put them back to where cars are driving and busting it up the road.
Yeah, people have a tendency to
They-
They cut the corners all the
Right.
time.
So we'll make it so that that area doesn't get done no more.
Okay, okay. Because I don't know, a guy could take some of these curved areas where there's a curb and you could check it and see what it is, get an idea. All you'd have to do is just take from the end of the curve, you just take and measure from where, right here, just measure out here, whatever it is, measure out here, whatever lines up with that, and that'll tell you what.
That's basically how we do it right now. We bring our lines out like that,
Uh-huh.
and then we'll just walk in the
Just
radius.
walk it around, yeah. But that's the way to get them all the same if you want to do it that way. So, sometimes you get in the trees and the brush and you can't find radius points, you don't know where they're at. It says here, making this cut too deep may cause trouble while steering the motor grader. Don't get greedy. See, like I say, the marker pass, when you mark your ditch out, don't get too greedy. I always get greedy. Where for contractors, they want to get a lot done. See, don't get greedy. Just make your light cut and make it straight. And if you get it crooked, make another light cut till you get it straight. Once you get it straight, all you got to do is just set in there and cut, and it'll go. Next pass, you made the same setting, but place the front wheel into marker cut. Put a load on the machine. Begin to take more than the machine can handle. Put the motivator first, put it in any gear you want to. Same the blade at both ends. Ditching, set the blade tight on both ends. Toe, heel. The video pretty much explains most of the ditching. Anything you'd like to discuss about just a regular V ditch? Anything how to? There's only about one way to really build one.
Yeah.
But that's
Get out
just,
there and do it.
just start digging, see? Just start digging. On a flat bottom ditch is the hardest to build. But that's one thing you might keep in mind, like I talked about flat bottom ditch. Like sometimes you have to place, replace curb. Where curb's torn out and you gotta replace a section of curb and you got some pavement on one side, and maybe you don't have a sidewalk. If you don't have a sidewalk back there, you got a bike path back a ways that'll let it. But if you don't have anything like that, well, of course that curb is usually at least 6 inches below your existing asphalt out here. Well, if you remove that and you got to clean it out to replace the curb, why, if you try to if you leave a mess there and you got to clean it up, somebody put in curb and you have to get in there, and you can get in there with a grader by just articulating the grader around. See, the tighter you articulate it, the sharper you can get your blade angle. You can get your blade angle sharper like that and get it in under you, and you can get it positioned clear around like that. You can set it right down in that trench, and you just drive right along and cut it out of there and clean it up. You might experiment with it sometime. Like you get, a couple hundred feet of curb you got to tear out, something like that, and replace. Or if they're going to put curb in someplace where there is no curb and you got asphalt there, well, you can either bring the material over against the asphalt and then pull it up, or you can either take it back away. It's whatever the situation calls for. Well, I suppose you get into them situations, don't you, where you do replace a lot of curb?
Well, yeah, we do, but we have
You get
a
out with backhoe.
You have backhoe.
we have a concrete crew that'll tear all
They
that
do
up
that, and they use a backhoe, huh?
with a thumb on it.
Because normally they don't do anything.
They don't do much damage to the grade below it,
No.
so they don't have to
They
get
just
in
pick it
there.
up. It's got a thumb on it. Set it in the truck.
Yeah. See, a lot of these construction projects, they go in and they save the existing asphalt, then maybe they go out a few feet, or they take out the curb, like Tudor Road a few years ago, they took out all the curb, replaced it all. Well, then, and they save all the asphalt there too, so you got a little place about that wide to work in. But it's something you can do. You can get around pretty sharp with that. For Back slope is required. Place one set of wheels ditch bottom, the other outside the ditch, put the wheels down. Another thing, like I say, you're cutting, you get a ditch bottom or something and you got a little ragged, dirt spills around. That hind wheel will sure pack a lot and make it look good. If you run it in there. You know, like a lot of times you can pull it and you just articulate just a little bit and that wheel will run along in there and it will press that material down and make it look a lot better. But like I say, a few snowstorms and a few winters and they all look good.
Grass gets built.
Cleaning the ditch, we've already talked about cleaning the ditch. Back sloping, cut the back slope, move the center shift, we said that was the video. Most of this was in the video. Cut the V-ditch, back slope, lift the right, clean ditch. We've done most of that. Clean up. Pretty much, they went through that, cleaned up, cleaning the ditch. Fed material across the road, let it dry, picked up. Pretty much this is covered. Well, cleaning a wet ditch, you probably all realize, I've done that a time or two, you can usually set the grader, sometimes you can set the grader up on the road and the front wheel's down or reach down in and pull material out, but you can't pull a lot of material that will pull you into the ditch. So you can do that method too, which will work. A lot of your ditches, probably if you clean some ditches, a lot of your ditches, they got high spots and low spots, so you don't want to just set in there and just go cut the high spots out. Then you pull up on the road and then you got ununiform material. Okay. Not much more that I can say on ditching. We'll go to sloping, but you want to take a break? Might as well.
Are we gonna watch another movie?
Yeah, we watched another movie, but I'm trying to, I don't know, one of my videos disappeared, and I don't know where it went. Gotta see it laying around here.
A guy? Guy we don't know?
See, there's Jonesy.
What?
What?
Picture on
That's the
it.
potholes, so
Right there.
Zeke.
didn't get stuck in that other machine somehow, did it?
No?
Okay, swiping tapes.
Oh.
Hal's got some of his hair back.
And straight frames and all mechanical controls. The controls on these older style graders were hard to feather and sometimes bounced back at the operator.
Oh, there he is.
The operator had to move pins on each side of the lift arms to gain reach. He had to loosen bolts on each side of the circle to adjust pitch. And the machine took a 40-acre field to turn around. But the jobs got done, mainly because of operator ingenuity. Today, the modern motor grader has improvements in controls, turning radius, and blade positioning that makes the grader more efficient and productive. As a result, an operator needs to be creative in different ways. Controls with fingertip effort hydraulically move as many functions as the operator can get his hands on. Articulated frame steering greatly enhances turning capabilities, reducing turning radius to less than 20 feet in some cases. Blade positioning is performed hydraulically from the cab. In many situations, the operator's imagination is the only limiting factor to what job his machine will do. In the next few minutes, we'll look at the various functions that you, the operator, have for taking control of your motor grader.
Professional operator Mike Boyle will lead us through the operation of each control. On this motor grader, the controls are adjustable and are easily reached from the operator's seat. Of all these control levers, the most important are the blade lifts, which are used to raise and lower the blade. The left and right blade lift controls are commonly available in two different lever patterns. One-handed, which places them side by side, or two-handed, which places one on each end of the pattern. The idea behind the side-by-side blade lift pattern is for better control at high speed, particularly in plowing snow. When the blade lifts are side by side, the operator has one hand to control the lift valves and the other hand free to control the steering wheel. Some operators feel that the two-handed blade configuration gives them better feel and modulation of the valves. This means that the operator has only one valve to control with each hand for better feel. When an operator moves a lift lever, he should be able to feel the valve open so he can smoothly control the function. This can be done by a slight even movement of the lever. The blade lifts also have a float position, obtained simply by pushing the blade lift levers forward into a detented position. The float position means the blade rests on its own weight with no hydraulic pressure. Float is used in moving material off of hard surfaces, plowing snow, following unusual ground surfaces, or just lowering the blade. With this machine, the blade lift levers can be placed into float separately, or you can float them together. Next, let's look at blade pitch. Moving the blade pitch lever changes the angle of the cutting edge. The height of the cutting edge will vary 7 inches from full pitch forward to full pitch back. This height adjustment will be consistent from one side of the blade to the other. For carrying material, the pitch should be all the way back so the moldboard acts like a dozer blade. For normal blading, the pitch should be rolled forward just enough to keep the material out of the circle and to keep a good rolling action on the blade. For cutting hard material and for visibility, roll the blade forward to use the sharpest point of the cutting edge. When reaching up a slope, or when blading a slope, to get maximum cutting edge reach, blade pitch should be rolled forward. This will also improve your visibility to the back of the cutting edge. When reaching down a slope or over a curb, the pitch should be rolled back enough to provide blade clearance over the top edge of the slope or curb. Blade pitch is an excellent tool when feathering out material because it provides consistent height adjustment across the blade. For example, when an operator wants to raise the blade evenly when coming to a T-road, he simply rolls blade pitch back to raise the cutting edge to feather out the material. Blade pitch will differ for each type of material, method of operation, cutting depth, compacting of surface, and speed of machine. The operator will have to try different pitch positions to determine the best angle to accomplish the job. Blade side shift is the horizontal movement of the moldboard. It's used mainly to gain reach and placement of the windrow. It's often used to reach around mailboxes, telephone poles, or any obstacle while blading. Side shifting the blade is fast and smooth and is the simplest way to gain or retract blade reach. This control operates circle rotation. It changes the angle of the blade. It's self-locking, and it can be rotated through a range of 360 degrees. The most common angle of blade rotation is in the range of 30 to 60 degrees, either right or left. This is approximately 1 to 4 feet behind either front wheel. Circle rotation helps determine the amount of rolling action. The sharper the angle, the larger the windrow. The more angle on the moldboard, the faster material slides down the blade, resulting in a large windrow. Allowing the material to slide down the blade faster also helps avoid side draft, which is the sideways force that the blade load places on the front end of the motor grader. Circle rotation can vary from a 90-degree blade position for spreading material to a 2-degree position for cutting a flat bottom ditch. The circle side shift lever is the control for the side-to-side movement of the circle. It's used to obtain reach, offset side draft, and to add or reduce the cutting angle of the blade. The circle side shift will change the height of the cutting edge, and for that reason the operator will usually set the circle side shift before starting a cutting pass. Wheel lean is the hydraulic movement of the front wheels, 20 degrees left or right. It can be used for offsetting side draft by leaning the top of the wheels in the same direction as windrowed material. This will help stop the front end of the machine from sliding and hold the wheels in a straight pass. For offsetting side draft on a slope, wheels should be leaned upslope. For machines equipped with front-wheel drive, the operator should try to keep tire tread flat on the slope for better traction. Wheel lean also affects reach. Reaching up or down a slope, wheel lean will add about 4 to 8 inches. The operator should be aware that the front wheels may slide under a heavy load when wheel lean is used for reach. Wheel lean reach is excellent for finishing passes where no side draft occurs. Working around obstacles, wheel lean can be used with blade side shift for a quick movement of the moldboard. The articulation lever is used in combination with wheel lean and the steering wheel for turning. Articulation, or the ability of the grader to pivot in the middle, has many advantages. When steering, wheel lean is used in conjunction with articulation and the steering wheel for making tight turns. Articulation can be used to offset side draft in order to handle a larger load. An operator can change articulation at any time, even on the go. This allows the operator to use a technique called duck walking to maneuver the machine out of a stuck position. Articulation improves visibility to the top of the blade by moving the frame out of the line of view. It can also be used to steer the machine in reverse so the operator can see where to aim his tandems. In this example, it helps him turn the grader around. If he's rotating the machine, he can articulate to allow a breeze to go through the cab and keep dust from the front wheels out of the cab.
Ain't that cool?
Offsetting the front axle will increase blade reach. And articulation will improve maneuverability and steering in tight areas. It allows a front-mounted dozer to become an angle dozer, or a front-mounted scare fire to scare fly outside the front tires. The Scare-Fire is a hydraulic accessory used to loosen hard surfaces by penetrating the surface with teeth or shanks. Most Scare-Fires come equipped to handle up to 9 teeth. Teeth are added or removed depending on the hardness of the surface. Many Scare-Fires are mounted in front, making an excellent attachment point for snowplows or dozer blades. The Scare-Fire lever also has a float position for snowplow skid shoes to run on. Scare-Fires can be mounted in the rear in combination with a ripper. The attachment has teeth for scare-firing and shanks for ripping. The ripper shanks are similar to Scare-Fire teeth, but are larger and penetrate deeper for heavier jobs. On the floor of the cab, you'll find the differential lock pedal. It hydraulically locks the tandems together to improve traction. The diff lock can be applied when the machine is moving. And unlocked when steering or in light operation. Next to the differential lock is the inching pedal. The inching pedal is used like a clutch to inch up to obstacles or to make a smoother transition from forward to reverse. The brake pedal is also located on the floor. Next to the brake is the accelerator pedal, which controls engine RPM. Behind the accelerator is the decelerator. When the hand throttle is set, engine RPMs can be reduced by pressing down on the decelerator. The hand throttle and decelerator combination can be used on long stretches of road, when the operator's foot becomes tired from using the accelerator. The saddle pin switch is located to the operator's right, and is used to hydraulically unlatch the saddle pin. Different positions of the saddle allow the operator to gain more reach, more blade clearance, more blade positions, and better balance of the machine on a slope. To move the saddle pin, first circle rotate the blade to a 45-degree position with the frame, which is about 4 feet behind the front wheel. Move the blade side shift all the way to the desired side, which is in this case the right side of the grader. Now move the circle side shift so the lift cylinders are just tipped to the desired side. Put the blade on the ground, which can be accomplished by using the float position. Next, move the toggle switch to the unlock position. And watch for the monitor light to come on indicating the pin is pulled. After the pin is pulled, the saddle is free to move, so never unlock the saddle with the blade off the ground or the blade will drop suddenly. With the blade firmly on the ground, the saddle will move by using the blade lift cylinders. The movement is accomplished by extending the lift cylinder on the desired side and retracting the lift cylinder on the opposite side. At the same time, the operator moves the circle side shift the opposite way of the saddle to keep the blade stationary. As the movement occurs, the operator watches the indicator outside the cab on the lift arm casting. Each hole on the casting represents a hole on the saddle. The operator moves the indicator to the desired position and locks the switch. Moving the blade lifts slightly until the light goes off. When the light goes off, the pin is locked. The operator can now raise the blade into the bank position. Again, this is done by retracting one lift cylinder and extending the other lift cylinder while moving the circle side shift. The blade can be extended 90 degrees, either right or left. This entire short procedure can be accomplished without the operator leaving the cab. To return the blade to the center hole position, the procedure is reversed. The blade side shift should be extended and blade rotated to a 45-degree angle. Put the blade on the ground with the blade lifts and circle side shift without dragging the heel of the blade on the ground. When the blade is on the ground, put both blade lifts in float and unlock the saddle switch. Noticing that the light is on, move the extended lift cylinder out of float and retract until the indicator is in the center hole. Return the switch to the lock position for normal operation. The saddle pin should be exercised at least once a week to keep the pin from freezing up. In the past few minutes, we've taken a brief look at motor grader controls and how they can be used. By understanding how these functions work, an operator can use various combinations to get the job done. Truly, he's only limited by his own imagination. For more information about motor grader operation in road building and maintenance applications, view the videotape titled, How to Get More Out of Your Motor Grader. This tape is available from the Deere & Company Distribution Service Center in East Moline, Illinois.
Yeah. Everybody like to have a John Deere grader? On like riding on the slopes, like they show you, what you want to keep in mind if you ever get involved in any of this riding on the slopes like they show you, articulating the grader. If you have your slope down here and you want to start up here at the top, you've got a windrow there, a windrow. If you run the front wheel of the grader here, like that, against that, that'll hold you from downdraft. And then as you move the wind, then you're articulated a little bit, see? So the rear part of your grader is can't run down the hole. Rear part of your grader running over here, see, like this, see? While you're putting another windrow down there. And of course, that'll hold the lower end of the grader. This holds the front wheel from side draft. And this windrow you put down here will keep the back end from sliding down the slope. But you don't have to articulate to do that if you don't want to. You can just, either way. They always show you articulate, but you don't have to. If you're just setting, you just run right in there like that, and your front wheel against that windrow, and your rear wheel's over here, and you're moving this windrow right over into here, why that'll hold you from sliding down the slope. This keeps your front end from sliding down the slope, and this keeps the back end. And that's one thing where you will run your wheel right next to the windrow instead of straddling it, and then you can run your moldboard out here like this. There's nothing going to run around this end, that's for sure, see? You come around here. And that way it'll hold you on the slope so you won't slide down. Because you get in a world of hurt if you slide down sometimes. Get in the wrong position. Also, about ripping and scar firing. I don't know, you do quite a bit of that probably, do you? You rip up quite a bit of streets, scar fire up?
Rip a lot of ice in the winter.
Rip a lot of ice in the winter, but you don't scar fire any streets or anything hardly.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah, we have in the
Time or
past.
two, huh?
They've
Well,
got
if you do
something
ripping
like
and you do scar firing, take it kind of slow and don't get in a rush. You can run the lower gear and don't penetrate any deeper than you can pull. And you can run the throttle and just like kind of idle along with enough power to pull, but if you start to slip, let off the throttle, it'll get traction. And pick the ripper up a little. And don't get in too big a hurry, because you really can tear things up with a ripper. You get too deep and you get to run along with the ripper, you hit a big rock or something, it'd throw you right through the grader, just like hitting a manhole in the wintertime. So you don't want to rip too fast. Even was working up at, and ripping with these cat graders, if they rip too much real heavy stuff and too fast, there's a lot of vibration up here and it takes the radiator out. He was working at Fort Knox Mine and they had some young engineers running the project, and they had some 777 big rock trucks running, and it was real slick, like this. So they had, they put a carbide tip blade on the back of the ripper. And some of them didn't just rip. They say stay ahead of the trucks. And they put some guys on it that didn't know what they were doing, and they went down there and they tore out 2 or 3 radiators out of those 16 graders. And who went to Canyon Creek, that master mechanic for Kiewit, all the rippers were put up in the air and they weren't down, and he wouldn't let nobody rip. I said, "That superintendent, why don't you put them rippers down?" He said, "I'll check on that." They stayed up. I asked Gary one day, I said, "Why don't you put them down?" He says, "They tear out too many radiators." So they didn't put them down until they got to Bird Creek. He punished him for over a year, about 2 years. He wouldn't let them rip because they tore the radiators out. So you can tear up a grader by ripping, as well as you can by, plowing snow and just hitting manholes too. So anyway, that's the way a John Deere grader works, and all the controls are on one side. I don't know if you ever got a hold of one of them or not. You ever tried one?
Looks pretty goofy.
It's real goofy, I'll tell you. Because what you have a tendency to want to over control, see, because you're sitting there with both controls. You will.
We had one and we all-wheel drive one.
Yeah.
We sold it.
It's kind of handy, the all-wheel drive's
I
handy.
still see it driving around. I mean, they're still using it.
They're still using it around?
Whoever bought it, yeah.
Yeah.
It was actually a really good shaped blade. Not many guys used it because they didn't like,
Oh, they didn't like it?
no. So it was in real good shape when I sold it. Had many years left on it.
I think some of these new Champions, I got in one, I looked it over, it's pretty nice. I think the only thing that'd be confusing to a person right away is the shifting, when you bump the shifting. I think that'd be confusing to someone.
And then they just changed them.
They're starting to copycat.
Yeah, they are in a
Copying all
way.
that stuff.
Yeah, their console and everything. The only thing I noticed, the levers, your levers inside the cab, it's like cat, when you bring it back to your lap, they stand straight up. You bring that one back, they lean back at you. And the guy told me, he said it hurts your wrist. If if you're on top of them, it's not so bad. If you try to reach the side of them where you can squeeze it, it don't.
The shifters were exactly backwards, so if you run cat and champion.
Yeah.
2 different nights, you'll throw yourself through the windshield, wanting to
Well, I
grab
see something
another
about
gear
it's
and you
a-
drop it in the
I
first.
seen one that's something about you just bump it. You bump it sideways.
Yeah.
The new ones
Yeah.
bump
New ones,
sideways.
yeah.
Yeah, this way to go down, this way to go up.
Shifted.
You have to remember that. You'd be in trouble, wouldn't you?
And you just got forward and reverse.
These cat graders too, like they call that an inching pedal. And on the 160s, the new 160s, Caterpillar demonstrated them and everything, and some of those operators didn't realize that you should use the clutch. And they were shifting down without the clutch. And they said it was pretty jerky. I asked them to use the clutch. No, they said we didn't have to. I never go down Thompson Pass plowing snow. Thompson Pass pretty steep. And they were shifting down without the clutch, see? So just pretty much throw them out of the cab. They said, "Well, that's horrible." I said, "Well, you use the clutch. You can shift them up if you know how to do it with the throttle. You can run the throttle, you can shift them up. But not under a load. But you should use the clutch. I don't know how the Champions are. The Champions, they have
They're like a car clutch.
they're like car clutch.
Yeah, it's not,
Yeah.
It's not an inching pedal.
It's not an inching
You
pedal.
can, yeah, you can feather it.
Okay. Can you, but then, when you shift up, can you shift up without the clutch? You can, can't you?
Yeah.
After you once start moving. And then change directions, you have to use the clutch again in reverse.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to get some information on the Champions, because I think it's beneficial. Okay, sloping. They are interesting to work, challenging to dress. Use your imagination to put the blade in the right position. Front wheel drive and aggressive load will help hold the grader on the slope, make the job easier. Of course, you don't have any set 2-to-1, 3-to-1, any type of slope. You just build a slope to fit the ditch, whatever you want to do.
Squeeze in there.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
depends on what.
Like if you want a 6 foot or a 6 foot inslope or something, why you just go 6 foot from where shoulder's gonna be and that's where you'd line up the ditch, go from there?
Yeah,
Or do you come off a right of way or do you even know where right of way is up in the hillside?
yeah, they've got right of way marked out. Most of the supervisors like to leave as many trees as possible. 'Cause you're right, people think they own that right of way. So as soon as you go
Oh,
in there and
sure.
start cutting trees out, well, they throw a big fit. So they try to leave as many trees as they can. And then, so that limits what kind of backslope you can put in there. They like to use it for snow storage, so you know, you kinda like to get
Yeah,
as
you like
flat
to
a
get 'em laid
backslope.
back.
You don't like to get them stand straight up.
And you like like to have as much distance from shoulder to bottom ditch as you can.
Yeah,
So the further you can go out on your inslope, maybe the steeper the back slope,
yeah.
you need that room.
It just, I don't think there's any set standard. I think it's just whatever you can fit in there, or whatever works best with where you're at.
But if you are coming off the shoulders, it's nice to have the same distance on the whole section of road you're working from
Right.
shoulder to bottom of ditch,
Yeah,
is what you do.
yeah.
That's not always
Just wanna like to
possible.
make
Yeah,
fit.
yeah, you can't
Do
always,
they want any, do you want any certain type of, do they want a fairly flat inslope? There's your winter meal.
oh,
What was it?
Little spike
well, I'm
about
so
that.
anxious.
You still standing there?
Lunch.
Yeah, dude. Hot six sounds just like a
crawl in the
tailgate
tree.
slamming in the wintertime.
Traffic. But anyway,
But-
you like to have the same distance from shoulder to the ditch all the way down the section you're working, don't you?
Yeah,
How do they usually establish? You come off a right of way and find yourself a center line and then work back?
and then work off the center line.
Work off center line?
Right,
Yeah.
Once you find the center line, then you go from there.
right.
You go back to
Main
shoulder and then
seal,
go
yeah,
back as far as you can go from there.
Yeah, and usually we've got like a 10-foot driving surface and then a 2 to 3 foot
We
shoulder.
forgot about it.
Then we go down and do a ditch.
You only go about a 26-inch top then or something like that.
Most time. You know, then again, depending on where you're working, how much room you've got. People have fences built clean out into the right of way sometimes, or, you know, sometimes
Garages.
the utilities, we just finished one up on 112th where they set the power lines, like the power poles, I think it was, I don't know, 10, 12 foot inside the right of way. So, I mean, you can only go over so far because that one of the power poles right on the corner. It just, you always run into something different.
Well, a lot of these roads up in the hillside were put in years and years ago. You know, somebody just dozed the road in there,
Yeah.
and then they built some houses and went from there, and there was no control over what they done. Now they control it more, hard permits.
I guess some places you don't have all the right of way yet, because they haven't subdivided. When it gets
Be
subdivided,
60
you don't,
60
it'll be
foot in one
60
place,
foot and 30
30
foot
foot,
and
back to
45
60.
foot and.
Oh. But you start from center line and work your way out.
Right.
Then once you get everything kind of established, why you just more or less kind of can build what you can build to get a uniform drainage, and uniform depth of ditch too. You call for any kind of ditch, what do they like, a 2-foot ditch? What do you usually put in, a 2-foot or?
Yeah.
It depends on what the road is. If we can use surface drainage or without getting into the ditch, 'cause we don't wanna get into people's driveways and.
Okay,
Business.
sometimes you
You
have
have
to,
to
use-
do either
sometimes no ditch really, just right to the shoulder really.
Sometimes, yeah.
That's kind of different road building, isn't it?
Well, it's not really, it's just maintenance.
Just maintenance is all you can do.
So with a plan, they contract it out.
If they contract it out, why then somebody will go in and
They have plans. and-
really tick the people off.
Yeah, they do their driveways and
Well, that's a little different than construction, see, because we usually construction is stake to the outer edges, we work our way in. But I know the municipality and the city and everything they do, they stake to center line. They stake it to center line, or they give you grade from center line. They usually give you finished grade, then you got to work from finished grade. Back, you got to subtract your asphalt, subtract your crushed average, subtract everything to get down to where subgrade is, or what you're working with when you're building, and start from there, because that's where you start. Then you gotta go clear out from there and find out where curb's gonna be. And figure your percentage of slope and all that. They do everything backwards in town compared to they do out of town. Out of town, everything's staked up outside the, they start it right away with reference points and RPs, and then they come in from there. It's a lot different. This is new to me. I've done it, so I know what it's like in town, what you're dealing with. But you don't deal with construction, you just deal with maintenance, and you gotta deal with what you gotta work with. That's all you gotta do. But then a lot of times too, you end up, when you pull, what do? You pull the mud, you pull a lot of dirty stuff out of the ditch, then you gotta pick it up the loader and move it,
Haul it on out there.
haul it off to a fill section or
We
something.
use that or we use an AT.
Is that an AT? That works pretty good, doesn't it? I used one of them years and years ago. They work pretty nice.
Sometimes we use them.
Cause you can back a truck into them and they work pretty fast. Actually, a lot cleaner loader.
Yeah, we use it for cleaning up snow in the wintertime. For the little stuff.
You know, the stuff that we pull out of the ditches and stuff, whatever we can use on the job site as far as backslip material or anything like that, we use it there rather than haul it off. But sometimes we end up hauling it off.
Yeah, if you get with a lot of these people, they want fill.
Yeah.
You go around there. If they want some fill, we just dump it in there for them.
And that'll
Gotta be kind of careful though. Sometimes they say they want it. She says, I want this fill over here, Sue Key. So you dump it over there. He comes home, what the hell is that doing over there? Well, I told him, well, I don't want it there. He comes out, what do you do, dump all that dirt? Well, your wife said, I don't care what she said, I own this place. Haul it off, you know. It's the best thing to get a written permission, you know. Get a signature from somebody.
Yeah, that's probably true then.
Because you will run into trouble some days, you know, because you'll haul it off somebody and then he'll come home and say, I don't want it there. Or you put it where she wanted it, and then she says, no, I didn't want it there, I want it over here. So, it's not always the women do that either, the men do that too. Then the wife comes home and she says, I don't want it there. And he says, oh
That's
boy,
not
well you better tell him. So then the wife goes out and says, I didn't want that dirt. Well, your husband said, I don't care what he said, I run the household around here. Get it out of here. So you gotta haul it off. So contractors are real skeptical about giving anybody material. Somebody says they want it, okay, they want it, but they're gonna sign papers according to, they agree to take it. Otherwise they don't. So you get into that kind of a problem.
A lot of times you're just opening a can of worms too.
You do
Do
sometimes,
something
yeah.
for one neighbor and then all
Then
of a
the next
sudden
one wants it too.
everybody-
How come he got all the dirt and I didn't get any?
You're like, oh Christ, what
Right.
do I start now?
Okay, we're back cutting slopes here. When the grader's reaching uphill to the left, move the saddle pin to the last hole to the left. Shift the shift the side shift almost all the way left. Articulate the front wheels up the slope to help balance the grader. Lean the wheels up the slope slightly. The angle of the blade is behind the front wheel enough to carry a small amount of material, fill any holes. Pitch the blade forward for better visibility. But you also pitch it forward, like I say, to keep it from dragging on the bottom. Your bottom carriers will drag. It says begin to pass the differential lock. I don't know about that. If you need it, lock it. If you don't, don't. Cast the dirt into a windrow between the tandems, adjust the blade side shift, run the upper set. That's more or less what's covered in the video. There's no need to go back through it. We'll go over here. Toe heel, it shows, it's a pretty good picture of cutting the slope, how to set your blade. Drive along the bottom and cut the back slope. Almost all machines, we went through this already. Adjusting the mold board, this can be done by changing the location of the blade attachment to the blade circle. One thing about it, when you set up to cut a slope, you're out there so far with that blade that if you just control the toe and let the heel take care of itself, if you can try to control the heel, you'll be in trouble. So the best way to do it is once you set up that blade to cut that slope, you just control the toe part of it up above. Let the heel take care of itself. Don't do anything with it. Leave it there. Once you get it set, leave it alone. And just go through. And if you have to make a second cut, you can make a second cut. But if you go fooling with it, and you make a cut, you make one cut, you'll make a continuous uniform cut. Then if you want to correct it, you come back and make another one. But if you go halfway through and you say, I want to change it, well then you got to come back and you got your slope like this. So it's best just to go continuous like that. With it. Of course, like they say, you can lean your wheels into it and lean your wheels in and out to types of slopes. the blade flat slopes, like a 4-to-1, you can ride on the slopes. Use the accelerator pedal instead of the hand throttle, accelerate. Now see, they like this articulation. You don't have to articulate, but you can. So you got a steep slope, so then you would set the blade out from under the grader, set it up, position yourself, but always, before you cut any slope, is you want to make that pass. And that's your slope there. Make you a pass. Find out where the catch is, and even if you haven't, even find out where you want it first. Find out where that's at, and make that pass, and get yourself a good pad to run on. Once you got a good pad to run on, you set yourself up with a template to cut that slope. Then when you set the blade up and drive, well, it'll cut a uniform slope for you. Because you're there. You got a nice flat, all uniform there. So if you grade that like this, like let's say you part of it is graded this way, and some of it is shaped this way. By then, when the grader sets like this, it's going to pull away from the slope. When it goes like this, it's going to go into the slope. So you've got to have a nice level pad, this uniform, all along the bottom of that slope to run on. If you don't have a uniform pad, you won't cut a nice uniform slope. So that's one thing that's important. Make a nice uniform flat pad at the bottom of your slope, which is the toe. I call this the catch point. This is the catch point. This is where you start. That's the catch point. And this is the toe. And then you drive the grader in there like I showed you before, see? Like so. And as long as that grader don't tip like this or like that, that blade will cut the same way all the way through. So make sure that you got a good level pad to start from. And you don't have to have a flat pad either. I mean, you can slope down like that, okay, and say you have to cut into here, way back in here like this, see? Cut way back in there to get down to there. You can pull that material out like this, lay it out there if you want to. Do it that way. But as long as it's uniform. One thing, sometimes like that, you pull a lot of material up like that at an angle, then you lay into the slope a little better, and the grader will cut, you can cut the slope a little better laying in against it than you can laying out the other way. Because your grader's laying over against the slope. Like I said, on some of these 140s and these graders, you got to run some of the front wheel up on the slope. Well, if you do like that, you might not have to because you're laying in somewhat already. But as long as this has to be, I can't stress that enough, that has to be uniform all the way down. Don't go down partly like that and then part of the slope flat, because then you'll have to control the blade. I don't think they really stress that much in the video.